Hello everyone, it's Elizabeth Huston from Elpis Astrology at elpisastrology.com. Thanks for joining me today. So today I'm going to cover the first half of November 2018, and I will include the new moon in Scorpio. We've got a number of changes happening in November, all which I think will lead to a positive outcome as we lead into December of 2018. We have Mercury and Jupiter that are now going to be in Sagittarius. And remember, Jupiter's home sign is Sagittarius, so it'll be extra potent here. We've got Venus that is now in Libra, the relationship sign. Venus rules Libra, and it will be going direct on the 16th. The North and South nodes now go into Cancer and Capricorn respectively. I'm going to start off with Venus retrograde in Libra and what that actually means to us. So even though the Venus retrograde kind of stops mid-month and then it goes direct, so then Venus goes direct the second half of November. So I'll talk about that direct motion and what it means in more detail in my second video, which will come in around the second half of November 2018. But Venus is in its home sign of Libra, as I mentioned. Venus is all about balance, harmony, and justice. So some of these things may be hard to find individually as well as collectively, and I think most of us know the collective part of it, which is in the news and the press. So there may still be some ongoing pursuits the first half of November with regards to balance, harmony, and justice. The main thing to remember with this Jupiter in Libra is that love is the law of the universe. And November, we're discovering that with the retrograde, Libra wants rites and rituals. But the Venus retrograde has us all reviewing these rituals and rites. And that in particular would obviously talk about our marriages. But it also refers to our values. Is this valuing me? But it especially applies to our relationships, and to be our relationships in society and our friendships, as well as our partners, in particular our partners. Is this person treating me right? Do I feel valued in this relationship? I mean, ask yourself that question if you are not sure. Ask yourself. And that will help you really think through whether or not the people that you belong with are really good for you. But it also asks you about how you personally are valuing yourself. Am I charging enough money for my services? Am I accepting things in the situation that really devalue me? So these are all questions that you should be asking at least for the first half of November with regards to relationships. So it all boils down to, is this truly valuing me? Are these rites and rituals that I bought into valuing me and working for me? It doesn't mean you're going to toss everything out. It just may mean there's going to be an adjustment that has to happen with regards to your relationships. Now Venus does go direct at 25 degrees of Libra on the 16th of November. So obviously if you have planets or angles around the 25th degree of Libra, this would be important, especially in terms of a turning point with regards to relationships. Maybe decisions that you make around the 16th of November will truly have an effect, because you will have made a decision to enact new things in your life that truly reflect people valuing you as well as you valuing yourself. Okay, let's go back up to talk a little bit about these new nodes, right? So there are nodes that you're born with natally. So your natal chart is the chart that you were born with. So you have your own nodes in your own chart. But what I'm talking about are the nodes in the universe. So we have those moving approximately 1.5 years. They change signs. So in November, we actually have these nodes going backwards in 2 signs. So we have the north nodes, and those are a point of destiny where we're supposed to be aiming towards as a collective, but also individually at this time. And so for the north node, we're starting at 29 degrees of Cancer. For the south nodes, we're looking at the opposite sign, and that would be 29 degrees of Capricorn. This essentially is an area where the collective like that's the whole world, as well as us individually, have to let go of. So look in your chart to see where, generally speaking, where Cancer is and Capricorn is. Now sometimes they will cover more than one house. You might have 2 houses, sometimes 3 that cover these signs. But we're starting off with the 29th degree of each of these signs. The nodes always go backwards. The planets go forward, except when they go backwards. All right. And so generally speaking, we're looking at with Cancer, so I'm going to focus a little bit more on the North Node, because that is where we're supposed to be aiming towards and developing. So Cancer really is about self-care. It is also, this is referred to as a safety and security axis. So when you look at Cancer as a sign, it's a very nurturing sign. It wants to protect its young, it wants to feather its nest, and generally, you know, be nice to people and be good to people and look after its young and those they view as close to themselves. Whereas if you look at Capricorn, the opposite sign, it's really more about discipline, kind of historically, ancient history actually, where we look at the role of the father, where discipline and heritage, you know, what's always been there is important. So it's those types of things you need to let go of, the discipline, heritage, what's always been there. That structure's been there ever since, whether it's a structure of an institution or a physical structure of that institution itself, or the rules and regulations. Well, that's always been there, so that's safety for me. I don't want that to change, right? But the key is that Capricorn part does have to change. And I won't get into all the details about Pluto being in there, but Pluto truly in that same sign of Capricorn is saying you're going to transform whether you like it or not. So that's transforming all our structures as well, whether it's government structures, banking structures, etc. Now, these north nodes and south nodes will stay on this axis until the end of April 2020. If you are, for instance, a Cancer, either by rising sign, ascendant, or sun sign, or if you've got a cluster of planets, like a stellium, in Cancer, you will be in particularly affected, and the focus will really be on you with these north nodes in Cancer. So this is really you stepping up and taking care of you. Now for Cancer, generally speaking, Cancers like to nurture and take care of others as opposed to taking care of themselves. But that's all about to change starting now, where you are being asked by the universe to step up and take care of yourself. Okay, so do remember that, all Cancers. And for Capricorn, it will be really more about taking care of the other, right? Because it's the opposite sign, so it'll be taking care of your partner. And there may be things that happen in the universe where you truly are forced to take care of another person. For those people who have, say, the north nodes themselves in Capricorn itself, or they have a sun or ascendant in Capricorn, where the south nodes will be aspecting that angle as well as the sun. So self-care is really a big thing for this, and protecting ourselves. Now if we look at that in terms of our country, and in this case it's the USA, we're going to see efforts put forward to protect our country, right? To protect ourselves and to set up in walls, regulations, and I think we've seen evidence of that already. We'll have to see how that plays out. But really, what we're supposed to be doing individually is, with this Cancer north nodes, is to actually learn to take care of ourselves in a compassionate, nurturing way. Not to look to others to take care of ourselves, so to independently do that. We've got a Mercury retrograde that's going to be happening at the same time that Venus goes direct, and that's on the 16th of November. So this might be kind of a mixed message day, is what I would say, the 16th of November. It's great that we're going to have a Venus in Libra at 25 degrees be going direct. I think that'll be wonderful for all of us, especially in terms of our love lives. Decisions will be made at that time, or just our relationships, not just our love life. I correct myself there, our relationships, and where we want to go forward with them in the months and years to come. This Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius going retrograde at that same time on the 16th is potentially going to set up some mixed messages. I mean, typically we look at a Mercury retrograde as mixed messages, but any retrograde is asking us to go inside ourselves. So in many respects, Mercury is going to be reflecting our thoughts, and it also is going to be reflecting a higher way of thinking too, right? Sagittarius is looking at a high road, taking the high road in life. It can also be, you know, philosophy, religion, that type of thing. So these may be things that will be applying to this new relationship situation or friendship situation that you decided you want to take, especially as it applies to your value of yourself. Now, my only caution is, and I mentioned this in my last video, because this Mercury retrograde is happening into Sagittarius, and Sagittarius also represents the truth, I would strongly suggest that you pursue the truth for you. You really have to, and coupled with that North Nodes being in Cancer, asking us to self-care ourselves. To me, this is saying, make sure that your thoughts of where you want to go with your relationships and your friendships are expressing your truth. And if you're not sure about that, take this Mercury retrograde. It only lasts for a few weeks. It will actually go direct on the 6th of December. So let's just take it up to the first week of December. Take some time to think about what is true for me. What is truly reflecting who I am. The other thing to remember is that the Venus going direct will get to 27 degrees of Scorpio on the 5th of January 2019. We're going to have the Mercury on the 6th of December, as I mentioned, and it will be at that same degree point, 27 degrees of Scorpio. So you might also want to look at that in your chart as well, if you have it. Where does 27 degrees of Scorpio happen for you? So we're really looking at, I'm making a long story, and the short of it is that we're almost going to have to wait till around the 5th of January 2019 to have this whole effect of the Venus retrograde, the Venus going direct, and our decisions about friendships and relationships to really set in place, because we've got this Mercury retrograde that also happens to go direct in Scorpio. So again, we've got that Scorpio mix in here. So first week of January is when we can probably really see some movement with regards to, okay, I now have the right friendships, I now have the right relationships, I have people respecting my values, and I in turn are respecting their values too. Let's talk about the new moon in Scorpio next. So on the 7th of November at 8:01 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, at 15 degrees of Scorpio, 11 minutes, we will have a new moon in Scorpio. Well, how apropos that we're going to have a new moon in Scorpio, just before we have Venus go direct. So what happens around this time is that we will have a couple of things. We're going to have Uranus, which is also retrograde, and it's retrograded back into 29 degrees of Aries. It's going to form a quincunx, what's called a quincunx to Jupiter, which is going to be at its final degree of Scorpio just before it goes into Sagittarius. So to me, this is happening at the new moon on the 7th of November, this is going to be bringing a lot of things to head. That's exactly what this is. And with Uranus in the mix, it's going to be unexpected. But because Uranus is retrograded back into Aries, and Aries is all about forging new paths, the pioneer, and Jupiter is about freedom as well as, going on your own path. The two mixed together here are kind of, to me, saying that there may be some kind of upset that happens at this time. Now, the other thing, of course, remember that we've got the midterm elections happening at this time too. So there may be some upset people. Now, that wouldn't be unusual in an election, I guess. But let's see how this pans out. There's going to be, someone's going to have to adjust, and they're not going to be happy about doing it. Let's just put it that way. And then in terms of our individual lives, there just may be some things that are brought to a head where you're not going to be able to avoid things anymore. You're going to have to make a decision. And it may not be something gigantic. It just may mean you're going to have to move the needle one way or the other so that you can blaze your own path with that, Aries, it's that final push of Uranus in Aries. It will not be back in Aries for quite some time. It'll be going into Taurus once we get into March, April next year. So this is kind of the last hurrah for Uranus in Aries. And, this says to me, I'm blazing my path. I want to be an individual here. I'm going to do what I want to do. Still being in Scorpio, Jupiter is still trying to uncover, those deep, dark secrets, the psychological underpinnings of how we operate. So all those things may be just kind of blown up a little bit, where there's just some final decisions made, all right? And it's also, the positive side of it is, I was thinking about this, was that, this is about letting go of darkness, in particular with regards to that Jupiter and Scorpio. Jupiter and Scorpio has not been a fun time, I don't think, for many. Although it could actually be very beneficial, or could have been beneficial for any psychological work that you were doing on yourself, or looking at really dark things in yourself that need to be brought up and addressed. So it could be positive that way. But to me, this is kind of like, I'm letting go of all that darkness now. I've dealt with it, I've looked at all the things, and I'm ready to let go of it. That's what this is also a moment of. And with the Uranus, it'll be saying it's going, whether you want to or not. I'm going to let this go. And then move forward into more optimistic, idealistic territory. And I'm talking here in particular about Jupiter going into Sagittarius. The other thing that Uranus retrograde does when it dips into those last degrees of Aries is it squares the north and south nodes. Remember, I just talked about those north and south nodes now being in Cancer and Capricorn respectively. So this can bring up some unexpected events. Uranus is unexpected, and those north and south nodes are things that we've either got to initiate, or things we've got to let go of. So it could bring to light some innovative things, like breakthroughs in the collective, in our world. It's going to be a force to be reckoned with, and I think the message is going to be, there's a new way forward. That's what the message is going to be. Uranus is going to bring that to us, and individually that will play out in wherever Cancer is and Capricorn is in your chart, that sort of axis. Look at that, especially with regards to Cancer, where Cancer is in your chart, because that's where you're supposed to be aiming for during this time period of the next 1.5 years. There's a new way forward. And with Jupiter in the mix coming into Sagittarius, not only is there a new way forward, there's a new optimistic way forward, where we're going to have a lot more hope and optimism, and really feeling that we can do something here positive. And that's a big change in our outlook. And this will be supported at this new moon. New moon means the moon and the sun are together, right? So these are both in Scorpio, which is kind of intense. So this new moon, even though it's a new moon, in Scorpio will be an intense time. And the other thing, because there's a lovely trine that's being formed to Neptune in Pisces, this will be very psychic. So a lot of your inner thinkings of the psychic realm may actually be very positive for you and give you some insight that you might not have otherwise had. But it will bring an idealism. I mean, Neptune is all about that too. Obviously, it's a great time for manifesting the dream. It is literally a dreamy time, so you could do a lot of daydreaming. But it could also be people who are into music and the arts. This could also be a really nice time for you, where a new beginning, because it's a new moon, a new beginning starts with regards to maybe a dream that you've had, maybe starting a singing career, anything that's maybe with regards to art, or writing music, writing poetry. I mean, if you're not going into that as a career, this would be a great time to, express yourself through these venues. Now, Jupiter in Sagittarius is in its home sign, so this makes it extra potent, Now, this will be on the 8th of November, so literally right after that new moon. So with Jupiter going into Sagittarius just after the new moon on the 8th, we can say that Jupiter and Sagittarius will be affecting that new moon too. So there will be optimism and positivism. And it's going to be in the early morning of the 8th of November for those that are interested in knowing that. So Jupiter was last here at the end of November 2006. So cast your mind back to think what was happening for the year. So it's November 2006 to November 2007. Basically, Jupiter stays in the sign for 1 year, and it takes a little over 12 years to go through the whole zodiac to come back to your sign again. So obviously for Sagittarians, this is a very positive year for you from November 2018 to 2019 in November. Very positive and extra potent. It should bring you a lot of luck. It'll bring you a lot of hope. And you will just feel more positive. Now this will spill out to the collective too. We'll just be more idealistic this time. I know this dream of mine can come true. I'm going to still move forward because I have hope in my heart and inspiration in my heart to say I can do that this year, whatever that might be for you. So aim high this year. Be realistic too, but this is a year to really aim high. Now Jupiter's all about taking risks too. So is Leo. The only thing about Jupiter and Sagittarius is that Jupiter expands everything it touches, right? So it's expanding Sagittarius, its home sign. Now, it can make you more prone to exaggerate. And then on the flip side, you could take calculated risks, but Jupiter can sometimes push you to take a risk that maybe you shouldn't be taking. I'm not saying you shouldn't take risks, but during this year, and maybe there's an ideal time to do that, but maybe just double check and check in with someone that you rely on for good advice before you make that jump. And again, prone to exaggeration. And certainly there's going to be a time, it's not this month, but at the end of January 2019, we have an aspect of Jupiter squaring Neptune at the same time that we're going to have that final total eclipse, which is a full moon in Leo at 0 degrees 52 minutes of Leo. So I can tell you there, on the 21st of January 2019, which is when that eclipse happens, there may be some exaggeration that happens in the collective, where someone is maybe telling lies a little bit. And it also can be where, our sense of reality is tested. So you could also mark that on your calendar, the 21st of Jan, to be maybe a little bit cautious about what somebody is saying or trying to get you to do. Always check the fine print. And of course, with Neptune involved there and together with Jupiter, false prophets could abound at that time on the 21st of Jan 2019. We'll talk about that in a few months in more detail. So the areas that are covered by Jupiter and Sagittarius traditionally include travel, religion, philosophy, hope, inspiration, and then aiming for those high ideals. So on the 11th of November, just after dusk, look for a small crescent moon. So this will be just a few days after the new moon. Look to the southwest, just above the horizon. And you will be able to see with your eyes what we call, as astrologers, a conjunction of the moon and Saturn. So this is kind of a fun thing to do. You hear us talking about aspects, squares, sextiles, and all that, trines. And so this is an ideal opportunity for you to get out and actually witness with your eyes what is a conjunction. And this will be a conjunction of the moon and Saturn, and you'll be able to see both these lights when you're out there, okay? Now, if you also want to take a look to the further to the right of that, you will see Mercury, and then further to the right of that, you will see Jupiter shining very brightly. All right, enjoy the night sky on the 11th of November. As always, I'd be interested in doing your own personal chart. Contact me via my website, astrology.com. I always enjoy hearing your comments, so please feel free to leave them. Take care till I talk to you next time, and I hope the first half of November is more positive and optimistic for you. Bye for now.